Okay.
Great, thank you, Colton. Hello, I'm Juliana Reshik, and I serve as the chair of the Continuing Nurse Education and IV Therapy Committee of the Kansas State Board of Nursing. I ask the members of the Continuing Nurse Education and IV Therapy Committee to respond to a roll call signifying their presence at this open meeting via conference call. Lori Owen. Here. Andrea Watson.
Present.
Giovanni Gonet. Melanie Burnett. Karen Offenberg.
Madam Chair, this is Chelsea of board staff. I see Karen is over in the list of attendees. Colton, I don't know if you could move her over to panelist, please.
Thank you, Chelsea. Good afternoon, Karen.
Sorry, I clicked the wrong link, I think.
That's
I'm
fine.
here.
Well,
Thank you.
we're glad you're here. And Teresa Sanderson.
She is absent with notice, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chelsea. Okay. I ask the following board staff members to signify their attendance. Carol Moreland, Executive Administrator.
Present.
Chelsea Stevenson, Education Specialist.
Present.
Michelle Brown, Senior Administrative Assistant.
Present.
Thanks, Michelle. Public comment allows individuals to address the Continuing Nurse Education and IV Therapy Committee about their concerns, but the Kansas Open Meetings Act, which is known as COMA, does not require the Continuing Nurse Education and IV Therapy Committee to provide public comment or answer questions from individuals. Public comment will not be taken today because there is the possibility that the connection for this remote meeting may be lost over time, and the time for the meeting may not allow everyone who is present to comment. Additionally, we will not know what comments an individual may make, and we would want to provide notice to the public of our intent to discuss a particular matter so that the public may listen and observe our discussion. Because we are conducting this public meeting remotely by Zoom and YouTube, I state for the record the following information. On November 29th, 2021, the board sent notice of the meeting for the Continuing Nurse Education and IV Therapy Committee to all individuals who have requested notice of the committee's meetings. Additionally, the notice and agenda were posted on the board's website, ksbn.kansas.gov. You may obtain a copy of the notice and agenda at the website or by sending an email to carolmoreland@ks.gov with the subject line, request for the agenda, and the board staff will send it to you. Number 2, the notice contains the internet links to access the meeting by Zoom and YouTube. The notice also contains the Zoom telephone number to attend this meeting by telephone call. All of these electronic mediums allow the public to attend this meeting free of charge. The notice also advises individuals to contact the board's office at 785-296-2967 if they experience any technical issues during the meeting. Number 3, the only mediums for interactive communication offered by this meeting are the connections by Zoom and YouTube as previously stated. Number 4, each member of the committee, board staff, or presenter shall state the person's name and title each time the person speaks or votes, as the case may be. Number 5, each participant to this meeting shall ensure microphones, phones, or other electronic devices are on mute when the participant is not speaking. Number 6, each motion will be clearly stated before the committee votes, and the chair will announce the results of the final vote. Number 7, a statement or motion will clearly identify and authorize by delegation each member of the committee or staff who will be permitted to sign any document on behalf of the committee. Number 8, a record of the meeting will be posted on the board's website. Number 9, the committee has the following items listed on the agenda: call to order, review of on-site packet, additions or revisions to the agenda, announcements, approval of minutes for the meeting held in September of 2021, unfinished business, new business, agenda for committee meeting in March 2022, and adjournment. Although the items listed in the agenda do not include an executive session. However, if the committee elects to exercise the option to go into executive session, the committee will follow this process. First, the committee must be in an open session before going into an executive session. Then a motion will be made and seconded. Pursuant to KSA 75-4319B, the motion must contain the statement of justification for closure, the subjects to be discussed, the time and place that the open meeting will resume. If a motion for executive session passes, public will be excluded from this portion of the meeting, as the executive session will be conducted by electronic means that will not be made available to the public. The committee members will return to the open meeting after the executive session. The open meeting will resume when the committee members return to Zoom and YouTube meeting after the executive session. The complete motion for an executive session will be recorded in the minutes. The meeting is now called to order, and the committee will now consider the next item on its agenda. So jumping right in, review of on-site packet. Chelsea, I don't believe we have.
Right, we do not have one.
Great. So additions and revisions to the agenda.
Madam Chair, this is Chelsea Stevenson, Education Specialist. We do have one item we need to add to the agenda under unfinished business, and that is update on delinquent providers.
Do we need a motion to accept the revisions?
We do, and Michelle does have that prepared.
Okay. Is there a committee member that would like to make the following motion? I move to amend the agenda to add the item of update and delinquent providers under unfinished business.
This is Andrea Watson. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Andrea. Is there a second?
Giovanni Gonell, second.
And welcome, Giovanni Cane. We're glad you're here. So we missed you in attendance, so we'll get you marked. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, so moving on to announcements. Nothing from Chelsea?
I have nothing.
Sounds good. All right. Did everyone get a chance to review the minutes from September? Michelle, when you're ready, we might entertain a motion.
Yeah. Is there a committee member that would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the September 14th, 2021 CNE committee minutes as written.
This is Karen Offenberg, CNE committee member, and I so move.
Thank you, Karen. Is there a second?
Andrea Watson, I'll second.
Thanks, Andrea. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Yes. And any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, moving down to unfinished business. Update on our CNE regulations.
Madam Chair, this is Carol Moreland, the administrator, and I can do this update. If you remember, you made revisions to 60-9-105, 60-9-106, and 60-9-107. I think I have finally got all of the revisions that the Department of Administration wants. And so I think it's ready to move on to the next stage, which is probably the Attorney General's office. I will just preface this by saying there's it's a very slow process right now getting revisions through, and it's not just us. There's a lot of revisions going through. Some of the process has been changed a little bit because of COVID and stuff like that. So they're in the process. Let's leave it at that. Hopefully I'll know more maybe in March.
Okay, that sounds great. Sounds great. Well, thanks for getting us started on that. And we know we knew it was going to take a while when we started. So, all right, IV therapy task force update.
Sure. So in September, the committee directed me to reach out to our IV therapy providers and find out what curriculum or teaching content they are using. This directive came because we created an IV therapy task force to look at the test questions that are used for IV therapy certification. And it was determined at that time that the questions are out of date or not applicable to the LPN scope of practice. So before we began to possibly make new test questions in a new pool, we wanted to look at the curriculum or the teaching content that our providers are pulling their information from. So I sent that survey out to 24 providers, and I have included a summary of their responses. Some of them did list specific standards or curriculum that they use. Some did mention KSBN curriculum. And I just want to mention that KSBN does not have an IV therapy curriculum. So I believe they're probably referencing the regulations and the statutes and what's required for competencies, but we don't have a standard curriculum that we're using or that we require of our providers for that. So you can see there in your packet what they have said. The IV therapy task force has not met since before our September meeting to allow for me to gather these responses. We did have a member on that task force who's no longer in this committee. So I don't know, Madam Chair, if we need to maybe get some additional people on the task force, or I guess I'm kind of just looking for direction from the committee as far as what you'd like me to do with this information, if we still want to move forward, or what you would like for me to do.
So I'll open it up for discussion. I do think we probably need to take this information back and review our statutes and bring them up to date. And will you remind us who is currently on the task force that's still here?
From the committee, there's no longer representation on the task force. So Becky was our only committee member. And then I did have 3 others of our providers, our IV therapy providers were on that task force. So as far as the committee goes, Becky and I represented the committee.
Okay. Does anyone here have interest in supporting that work?
Madam Chair, since we do have new committee members, would it be okay if I just gave an overview perhaps of what we had initially found in September?
That'd be great. Great.
We had reviewed, there is a test pool of 100 questions for IV therapy certification that our providers can pull 50 questions from for their tests. They've not been reviewed in many, many, many years. And what the task force found was that those questions were out of practice or out of date. Some of them were above the scope of practice for an LPN regarding medications that LPNs can't give, but they were still being tested on them. So the task force determined that it would be in the best interest if we move forward with creating new questions. And then, as I mentioned before, we wanted to find out where the curriculum or the teaching content was coming from to see if we could have questions across the board that met the needs of most of our providers. So this is the information that we got back from them.
Okay. So knowing that, is there anyone who has any interest that might help support reviewing this? And Chelsea, maybe you could talk a little bit about time commitment. Lots of times that's people's hesitation. So
Sure. I think what the task force had discussed before was breaking down the questions as they are now into content areas. And I'm trying to pull up what we had previously, but it certainly wouldn't be, let's get 100 questions, hurry up and go. I think this it needs to be reviewed in sections as it's broken down into the test pool. What I had done with the task force previously is sent out that test pool to them. If we want to kind of start over from ground zero with that, since we would have new task force members, we could certainly go that route. And maybe meet one time before March to kind of regather our thoughts and kind of go from there. It's not a real pressing issue where I'm hearing from our providers constantly, that this needs to happen this very second. I just, the impression that I've got from them is that perhaps we're testing on things that aren't going to help the LPNs once they are in the field. And they would like to see maybe questions that they would actually, they're not just memorizing facts. They are learning what would be applicable for them in their scope.
This is Lori Owen, new board member. I would be interested in helping with that as a practicing LPN. So I would be more than welcome to do that, or happy to do that for you guys.
Thank you very much, Lori. We appreciate that. Anyone else interested in helping support that work?
Juliana, I would be interested in helping with that. One of the questions that I do have, and an idea that might be good, is to add maybe a couple of teachers from across the state that actually teach, allied health, in the colleges, because ultimately they are the ones doing the teaching. And then with the provider's assistance, then we can kind of coordinate and see exactly which questions would be appropriate for that. So kind of a collaboration between the teachers that are actually teaching and then the providers, and then, just coming together to find a solution for this. And I know that I can probably identify a couple of teachers that would want to join this task force and, be able to assist with that.
So I like the recommendation. Carol, Chelsea, do you have any hesitations with that?
This is Carol. No, I think that would be fine. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and I think with Lori's expertise as well, being a practicing LPN, that would be a nice complement. So,
Yeah.
Chelsea, can you help lead that work for us?
Sure. So Lori and Giovanni, I will send you an email this week. I'm also going to reach out to our, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 of our actual IV therapy providers to kind of just rope us all back in together. And then Giovanni, as you mentioned, if you do know of some teachers who would be willing to help with this effort, I think the more the merrier, especially with the feet on the ground, would really kind of help. So maybe we could kind of just have one meeting, kind of come together and discuss some goals and ideas that we could perhaps bring back in March.
Great. Thank you very much for that work. I appreciate that. Okay, moving on to new business. Our IOA statistical report.
Yes, so this is Chelsea, education specialist. I've included that in your packet. We're kind of just business as usual, moving ahead. There's nothing really that stands out in particular to me. We have had a lot of, as you were aware from our packet, long-term CNE provider applications. And then I've also approved quite a few single offering CNE providers over the last few months, but otherwise everything's kind of just business as usual.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Hey, Madam Chair, this is Carol. And can we back up and pick up that update on delinquent providers that we added?
Absolutely. I apologize. Thanks for
That's okay. That's okay. And I can talk about that. This is Carol Moreland, administrator. You will remember, and you see this in your minutes that you just approved, there was some discussion about the delinquent CNE providers at the last meeting, and it was moved to withdraw their approved status. There were 6 of them. So I have been working with our legal counsel to figure out exactly how we do this. And we actually send out a summary proceeding order to each one of them. And in case you're not too familiar with that, Charles has put together all of the applicable law, the findings of fact, and all of that stuff. And then once we get ready to send this out, it will be signed, stamped, whichever, by the board president. And then we have to verify what date we actually put it in the mail from our agency. And the reason that's important, because if they want to have a hearing or anything, this provider, they have 15 days from that date to notify me. And so actually, these 6 are not withdrawn yet. And that's important for you to realize, because according to 60-9-107 L3, it says that any approved provider that has voluntarily relinquished their providership or has had the providership withdrawn by the board may reapply as a long-term provider. So that means that their approval has to be withdrawn. The summary order has to be mailed, in effect, the 15 days passed and all of that before we can actually look at another application from them. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it, so that you can kind of keep that in the back of your mind as we move ahead on the agenda. But I will be working with Charles to get these out soon, but then they will be withdrawn and we can report back at the next meeting on that. And if there's any questions, let me know. But
Thank you for that update, Carol. I think that will be important as we work through the next pieces of our agenda. Okay. Jumping back down to our new business, the approved national credentialing organizations for CNE.
This is Chelsea Stevenson, Education Specialist. We have in our regulations where it states that CNE would be considered pre-approved if it is approved by another state board of nursing, or if it is accredited by a national nursing organization. So we do not have a defined list posted anywhere. This has kind of just been up for interpretation, as my understanding is, over the years. So Carol had found this list from the Minnesota Board of Nursing that's included in your packet on page 9. And it includes pretty much every national certification organization that I see come through for CNE. Most commonly, it's the AANP, some of the certification boards. They're just not, we don't have a defined list. So what I would like to have happen is for us to adopt this list. As I said, I can't think of any others that come across that I see or get asked about, and of course make it for KSBN and have it posted on our website. That way, as nurses are determining if they need to complete an individual offering approval application for their CNE, either for renewing or for reinstating, there's some clear definitions somewhere, not only for myself or the education department, but also for our legal department as they're working with reinstatements and that sort of thing. So like I said, Carol found this list. It pretty much includes everything that I see come across. I can't think of any additions that would need to be added. We would just make it specific with our logo, etc.
That sounds reasonable. Is that something we would need a motion for, Chelsea?
I think so. Carol, would you agree we would need a motion for that to adopt that list? Okay.
yes,
Michelle, do you have a motion prepared for that, or would you need language?
I do not have an emotion for that, so we'll have to have language.
Okay.
Any questions anyone has? Or if there's a motion?
So do you need us to sort of draft what we want this language to be for the motion, or so can?
If you would like, or I can draft it up real quick for Michelle.
That would be awesome. Then we know
Okay.
all of our bases are covered and take it from there.
Michelle, are you typing? If I just say it for the motion piece? Okay. Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to adopt the list of national nursing certification organizations for pre-approved CNE providers.
This is Andrea Watson. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Andrea. Is there a second?
Giovanni Gone, I'll second that.
Thank you, Giovanni. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, going down to our initial applications. So starting with our Allied Health Instructors Academy. And this is one that Teresa and I were supposed to review. I did look through it, and with Teresa's absence, I think it's just me. So I did look through it. I did not find any corrections. It appeared to me that staff found all of the components within the application, and I did not have any concerns. So I don't know if anyone else has concerns or anything that they might have glanced through and noticed. And if not, I would accept a motion.
I have a motion ready.
Okay.
Is there a committee member that would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the initial application for Allied Instructors Academy.
This is Giovanni Gone. I so move.
Thank you, Giovanni. Is there a second?
Andrea Watson, I'll second.
Thanks, Andrea. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Our second new initial application is the DSD Whole Body Wellness. This was Lori and I believe, that were assigned to review it. Lori, did you have any comments you wanted to make?
I didn't notice anything the first time reviewing these things though. So I was like, I didn't see anything.
Well, I felt like it was very thorough as well. I thought this, and I appreciate the work that the staff does, because it makes our review very much more simpler to go through the full submission. They're pretty lengthy, and it's a joint effort, but I felt like it was a very thorough application as well. So if there's a motion, we would entertain that motion.
Is there a committee member that would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the initial application for DSC Whole Body Wellness.
This is Karen Offenberg. I so move.
Thank you, Karen. Is there a second?
This is Lori Owen. I'll second.
Thank you, Lori. All in, or any discussion? I should ask for that first. All in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Okay, we have HCA Mid-America Clinical Education. And I think this is Lori and Andrea that reviewed this one.
I didn't notice anything missing upon review. It seemed a thorough submission.
Sounds great.
Same.
All right. Michelle?
Is there a committee member that would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the initial application for HCA Mid-America Clinical Education.
This is Andrea Watson. I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Andrea. Is there a second?
Giovanni Oneja, second.
Thanks, Giovanni. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So now we're on to the KDHE initial application, and I believe this one, I appreciate the conversation that information Carol shared with us earlier. This KDHE was one that was a delinquent, but that information has not been shared. So based upon what you just stated, Carol, they would not be eligible to apply for initial application, being that they are currently in the delinquent status. So we should.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
No, I mean, an option that you have is to just table this until March or whatever. But yeah, today it hasn't been withdrawn yet.
Okay. So as opposed to just tabling it till March, they could pay their back fines and become up to date. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Which would be our recommendation versus wiping the slate clean and letting them start over with an initial application. So I know that we've sent those letters previously. Could we send them again? Does anybody have any, or maybe you have some other advice, Carol? I don't know.
No, I'm not sure because we've not been down this path before, but
Right.
I'm just thinking we usually notify them, that we couldn't take action on their application at this meeting because of the following reasons. So do we want to give them one more chance of saying, you could pay your back fees and submit your annual reports for 2 years or something like that. And then you will stay a provider. Or the other option you have is we will do a summary order. We will withdraw your providership. And then after it's withdrawn, then you can submit an application. And I think that's one way to deal with it.
Okay.
I mean, I think they've been told that, but maybe we can try one more time. Right, Chelsea? I mean, there's been some conversation with these.
Yes, that's correct. They are aware that they're able to pay the $150 in delinquents, and they will not. They would prefer to pay the $200 initial application fee to start over. That's as recent as September 10th, conversation September 10th, excuse me.
Okay. And maybe that's a discussion we have at the next meeting if we're tabling this for today and giving and communicating that back. But I guess I would want to consider their accountability towards the requirements going forward. If they have not been consistent with our process historically, do we as a committee feel okay with them wiping that slate clean? I mean, to me, it's less of a financial concern as more of a accountability.
In that communication that goes out to those sites that would be, that have been delinquent, is there any sort of, then waiting period, or is there any sort of time that you have to then, if you choose not to follow the guidelines, is there any time that you would have to wait to then apply to be a provider again?
Well, this, Carol, It would be this 15 days after the date in which we mail this summary order, because they have 15 days from that date to request a hearing. Okay, if they would want to come back and say, no, I want to keep it, or I'm not sure. I mean, I think we've reached out to a lot of these numerous times, but then past that 15 days, their providership is withdrawn. They're taken off from any lists that we have or anything along that line. So at that point in time, they could reapply because their providership has been withdrawn by the board. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. That's not a long wait, is it? So.
No.
I'm just curious, this is Karen. Is the coordinator the same as before with the initial? I wondered if they had a change in provider coordinator.
The coordinator did change earlier this year, and that person is who I was working with to get the delinquent fees and reports submitted.
Oh, okay.
And they were successful in submitting some of the delinquent reports, but my understanding is that the delinquent fees, the person that would be in charge of paying those fees was adamant that they would not be paid.
Thank you.
And the fees totaled the $150, and then a new application is $200.
Correct.
Well, I kind of hear the indication leaning towards tabling this application for the time being and sending the communication as Carol described. Is that what we want to do? And do we need a motion for that, or is that just direction?
That's just direction, and then Michelle will just note on the motion we have that it's tabled, and then we can just add it back to the agenda for March.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that discussion. Nursing CEUs with Lauren? Oh, sorry, that is Giovanni and then Melanie, who's absent. So Giovanni, did you have a chance to review that?
I did have a chance to review that very quickly. I didn't see anything that was missing. It all seemed very well put together.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Michelle, you have a motion for us?
Is there a committee member that would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the initial application for nursing CEUs with Lauren.
Second? Or I guess I need the first, huh? Michelle's the reader of the motion.
This is Andrea Watson. I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Andrea. Is there a second?
This is Karen Offenberg. I'll second.
Thanks, Karen. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you very much. Motion carries. Okay, and our last initial application is Victorious Mentoring, LLC. And this was, Karen, I think you're the only one who's here.
Yes, this was very thorough too. I was impressed with their application. I did notice, and it could be oversight on my end, but on page 232, they had a copy of their certificate. And I didn't see a requirements, the provider's name, address, and provider number. I didn't see an address on their certificate. I don't know if anyone else noticed that. Or...
Yeah, I don't see the address either, so maybe our motion could include that recommendation.
That would be good. And then just one other item. They had a policy on credit for fraction hours, but it wasn't stated in the policy that it has to be over 30 minutes. They did have an increment of 0.25, which was 15 minutes. But I didn't see anywhere stated that it has to be over 30. So I don't know if we want to mention that or if that's.
Yeah.
And those were the only two things I found.
Okay. Thank you, Karen. I don't know if there's a motion.
We do have a motion, and we wanted to add to the motion that they, with the addition of their address added to the completion certificate. Okay. Is there a committee member?
Michelle, this is Chelsea,
ahead.
sorry. And then, Madam Chair, we also want to make the addition to clarify the earning of the CNE contact hour must be over 1 contact hour.
I would assume so. I don't want to speak for the committee, but I would assume so. And then the other question is, do we want to see those things or just upon their next renewal?
In the past, what has happened is that I've just reached out to them and requested they send that to me. And then we go ahead and send their approval. So their approval today would be contingent upon receiving those 2 things.
Okay.
And did we want it to say over 30 minutes instead of an hour? Is that?
It has to be at least 1 contact hour before we can award half contact hour increments. So they have to at least earn the 1 contact hour.
Okay, this
So
is
Michelle,
Michelle.
it would just be, I was gonna say, do you have that down?
Well, I was just going to clarify that it needs to say, clarify the CNE contact hour to over 1 contact hour. How do you want to?
I think they need to state that in their policy that the CNEs, the fraction of hours are awarded for beyond the 1 hour. I don't know that I'm saying that well. I think we probably need some better verbiage for that.
Okay, so they need to clarify in their policy that the contact hour be over. How do you want to word that?
This is Chelsea, board staff. I would probably say to clarify their policy to include fractions of hours over 1 contact hour.
Good job. Thank you, Chelsea.
Okay. Is there a committee member that would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the initial application for Victorious Mentoring LLC with the addition of their address added to the completion certificate, and that they clarify in their policies to include a fraction of the credit hour equals 1 contact hour.
Juliana, I see, I'm sorry, I see we keep bouncing.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know that I should be the one amending the motion, as I'm probably not the one making the motion. So I don't know if you want to make some comments or.
I think maybe because no one has made the motion yet, Carol, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I can step in as staff to help edit the wording before we make the motion.
That'd be great.
Just the last piece, Michelle, I think just to clarify their policy for awarding contact hours beyond 1 contact hour, fraction contact hours. So clarify the policy for awarding fraction hours beyond 1 contact hour.
Okay, clarify and their policies. To awarding.
Go ahead.
Oh, I thought you were gonna.
No, do you need me?
Go ahead.
Awarding, okay. Clarifying their policies for awarding fractions of hours beyond 1 contact hour.
And I hate to muddy the water, but does somebody want to look at page 234? They have both worded, but I'm not sure if it really follows the policy or the regulation. If somebody wants to read 1 and 2, awarding contact hours.
I think they're trying to say that, but it's not very clear in how they've laid it out. So I think it's fine to ask for clarification. I might just point out though that we might want to, if we can go back and change our motion, I don't know. I just, in looking for language, I believe that the nursing CEUs with Lauren, I think they essentially say the exact same thing. So we might, I'd have to find their application page, but you might want similar clarification, just.
It was listed, I think, right at the beginning too, wasn't it? And I think in the same manner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's on page 179. For the previous provider.
So I believe what Chelsea had mentioned would still work for the motion.
So do we need to, do we want to, I don't think we've made the motion yet for this current provider. So do we want to make the motion with these additions, and then we could just maybe go back and revisit what our motion was for the nursing CEUs provider and possibly amend?
That sounds reasonable, Andrea. So Michelle, do you want to read us what you have?
Yeah. Let me go over the fraction hour just to make sure that I have it the way it needs to be. It's So I have, they need to clarify in their policies to include awarding contact fraction of hour beyond 1 contact hour. Okay. Is there a committee member that would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the initial application for Victorious Mentoring LLC with the addition of they're adding the address to the completion certificate and to clarify in their policies to include awarding contact fraction of hour beyond 1 contact hour.
This is Andrea Watson. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Andrea. Is there a second?
Giovanni Gone, I'll second that.
Thank you, Giovanni. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, let me get back up here. So moving on to our next item on the agenda is discussing our March committee meeting. Are there any agenda items for March?
Quick question. Do we want to go back? Do we want to revisit the motion for the nursing CEUs with Lauren to make that addition to clarification for partial credit?
So I did we not have that? We didn't have that for the CEUs with Lauren, did we?
I don't believe we did.
We just did that on the last one. So can we amend that motion, Carol?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
I think, this is Chelsea, education specialist. I think that the motion will need to read, Michelle. I move to amend the motion made to include approval of the providership pending submission of an updated policy to clarify. And then you'll use the same language that we just used as far as the fraction hour goes.
Move to amend motion made to include providership
To
updates.
approve the providership pending clarification of their policy. And then the verbiage will be the same as what you just wrote for the fraction for the previous provider.
Should I go back and read the motion that was adopted first, or should I just go to the amendment?
I think we know the motion that was approved, so just go ahead to the amendment.
Okay. Is there a committee member that would like to make the following motion? I move to amend the motion made to include providership approval pending clarification to their policies and awarding contact fraction of hour beyond 1 contact hour.
This is Andrea Watson. I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
This is Karen Offenberg. I second.
Thank you, Karen. And discussion. And I would like to clarify that this is regarding the motion that was made previously regarding nursing CEUs with Lauren, and that we're getting this amended motion tied to that correct one. So those motions will be numbered. Is that correct? And so, okay, I just want to make sure that we're all clear.
Yes, they'll be numbered, Madam Chair, and then they will also be together as read
Okay.
in the minutes.
Perfect. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Yeah.
Okay, and any opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Thank you all for that. That was cumbersome, so I apologize for that. Now moving on to the agenda for March 2020.
Madam Chair, this is Chelsea Stevenson. I believe we will have an update on CNE regulations, a IV therapy task force update, and then the initial long-term provider application for Kansas Department of Health and Environment.
Great. That's exactly what I had on my list as well. So.
And I believe, Carol, will we also provide an update on the delinquent providers at that time? Should that go on the agenda as well?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, sounds like a great idea. Thank you very much, Chelsea. All right, well, I think that brings us to the end. And we don't need a motion to adjourn any longer. So thank you all very much for your attendance. And I hope you have a very Merry Christmas if we don't see you before. So thank you.
Thank you.